All right, we are live. Hey, you guys, welcome to our Master Your Money Pacesetters program. This is National Sales Director Leah Laughlin, and I just want to say thank you for being a part of this program. You guys, I am so excited. This has been such a long time coming. I have wanted to put content together for my unit, for my area, related to this topic for years now. And I've attempted it in small ways, but not in a comprehensive program that had all the content and information that I wanted to train on in a way that made sense and in a way that wasn't too overwhelming, but still gave you the information that you needed. So anyways, I've wanted to do this forever, and I finally have pulled it together. And I don't know if I've ever spent so much time on creating a Pacesetters and creating content that I have as I have with this program. And so I'm excited you're a part of it. And I've prayed about it and just really desire this to make a difference in the Unleashed National area and Mary Kay as a whole, and really think it can be a game changer for every person, every family member, and every community that you guys touch. I really believe this can be life-changing to really master and wrap our hearts and our minds around these skills and this way of thinking. And so let's get started, because we don't have really a minute to spare, because we have a lot of content to cover. And so my personal investment of time into learning about this topic, master your money or money management or wealth management, whatever you want to call it, it has been just such a life-changing thing for me. And if you have already started on that journey, because I know a lot of you have, like as people have signed up for this, I've heard that people are doing Dave Ramsey and just months away from being debt-free. And I know a lot of you have already started your own personal journey to being more financially healthy, independent, secure, debt-free. A lot of you have began that journey. And so if you've already started, and maybe you're well on your way, I hope this is just even more support and encouragement and affirmation for you. And for those of you who maybe haven't began that journey yet, and you're kind of at the starting line of like, okay, I need to figure this out. Like I need to figure out my money and figure out what's going on. If you're just at the starting line, I hope this is just a major turning point for you. Because I'm going to share my turning point with you and what was the catalyst to me really investing more time and energy and learning into this. So I hope and pray that this is a turning point for you that gets you on that journey and keeps you on that journey. So we have 6 hours of content that I'm doing with the Hangouts. And then I have spent hours on YouTube looking at videos and getting resources and then putting things together. So you'll have another couple hours of videos that you're going to watch. And then I want everyone to choose a book. That's another thing that I want you to do in this program. We're going to go over that a little bit more in a second. So I want you to at least read one book. And so it's going to be some hours of time you're investing in this between the Hangouts, working through the workbook, because there's work you do separate from the Hangouts, in that, watching the additional videos and reading your book. You're going to invest some time into this. But what I want you to know is that this is just the kind of skill that you don't just hit it and quit it. You don't just like do this Pacesetters and it's over. It's just this like lifelong journey that we're all on. And so I want everyone to just get on their own personal path to having a lifelong journey of mastering and understanding this skill, because it's going to bless your life. It's going to bless your family, you guys, but it just has this, it's a ripple effect impact that it's going to have in every relationship you have, every community, every group that you're involved in. It's going to impact other people. I really do believe that the way of thinking and living that we're going to talk about in this Hangout can be so impactful for you, okay? So we're going to be on this lifelong journey, even though this Pacesetters is only 3 weeks long. So there is no part of our lives that money does not touch in some way, shape, or form. We make money choices every single day. The number one cause of divorce is money or financial disagreement or stress. 16 out of the 38 parables that Jesus Christ teaches in the Bible deal with money. 16 out of 38, so it's almost half. More is said in the New Testament about money than heaven and hell combined. There is 5 times more is said about money than prayer. And while there are 100+ verses on both prayer and faith in the Bible, there are over 2,000 verses in the Bible dealing with money and possessions. And so obviously the Bible and God's word has a lot to say about this topic. And I just think it's so important. So for you to not give energy and time and intention to growing this skill and understanding your connection to money and learning to be a responsible steward of what God has given you, I believe is naive, and it's ignorant, and it's selfish, and it's short-sighted, and it's just flat out irresponsible. Or just to leave it in someone else's hands. So maybe your husband or somebody else in your life deals with your finances, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's usually the case, that it's either the husband or the wife that mainly handles it. But I so believe, especially in a marriage, that it's got to be a team effort, and that both husband and wife should be so clear on their goals, so clear on where their financial situation is, so clear that there would be no secrets, and that you would be on the same page. And so a lot of times I'll see it too heavy on one side or the other. Either the wife and maybe more often the husband is handling the finances, and the other spouse doesn't know a whole lot about what's going on and isn't really involved in the planning or the goal setting or the budgeting. And so if that's your situation, I'm sure your husband can do a great job. I'm sure he's doing great without you if that is your situation. But I've heard too many stories, you guys, like horror stories of people maybe losing that spouse, whether it was the wife or the husband. And of course, dealing with the grief of that loss. And then all of a sudden, on top of that grief, having to manage your financial life for the first time ever and really not knowing anything about managing it. I think it really sets you up for a lot of grief and heartache in the future. Okay? So let us give energy and time to growing this skill and understanding our connection to money and learning to be responsible stewards, because it's just important. And to not do it, like, oh, I just think it's like so dumb. Like, don't be stupid. Don't be stupid and not learn about this. And if you have a spouse or a significant person in your life who mainly manages your finances, how could you get more involved? And usually one person pays the bills and one person does that. So I know that the roles and the tasks are often split up, and I think that's fine. But so important to have clarity and to goal set together and to be on the same page together. So with that being said, how we're going to do this, especially today, is we're going to start with just the kind of the broad picture, the bigger perspective, the higher level thinking topics. We're going to start really big, and then we're going to whittle it down to the mechanical things, like how to do a 60-40 split, how taxes are related to our business, how to set up certain accounts so that you're organized, how to get organized in your office. Okay, so we're going to cover both like bigger thinking things and then the mechanical stuff. So today is mainly some bigger concepts. And so you're going to end today and probably really not know what to do next or maybe not feel like you learned any new like skills you can immediately implement, but we will get to it. Okay, so if your husband asks you tonight, like, okay, what are you going to do next? And you're like, I don't really know. That's okay. We will get to it eventually, but we're going to start with bigger concepts today and the bigger, broader picture of money in your life, and then we will get more skill related. Okay, that's kind of how I wanted to do it, because we got to start with the right mindset. As with anything in life, like you got to start with the right mindset and the right heart set. And then you take action on that. Okay, so usually you can't start taking action until you have the right type of thinking in your mind and your heart, and then you take action. And everything requires both. To see any transformation or growth or success in any area of life, it takes both. You've got to have the right mindset and then take the right actions. And we're going to learn to do both of those in this program. Okay, so I'm going to start with and spend the most time on this hangout with 10 major concepts, like money concepts. And we're just going to talk about them and talk it out. And there is a book list in your workbook. And I'm going to try to connect some of these concepts to a book, because what I want you to do is choose at least one book and read it. What I was going to do was pick a book for all of us to read, but then I just know that there's so many people on this, and we're all in such different, we all have different needs in our financial lives, that I wanted you to pick the one that would fulfill a need that you believe you have right now. And so as I go through these concepts, I'm going to say like, hey, if you want to learn more about this, read this book. Or if you want to learn more about this, read this book. And you're going to choose one if you haven't already. That's what I decided to do with the book thing. So as you listen to these, just kind of keep your ears perked for like, ooh, I want to dig into that a little bit more. Or like, ooh, that's an area of weakness, or oh, I need to grow my understanding about that. Keep your ears kind of perked for that, because then it may help you to know which book to choose to read. Okay, and you have to read a book, you guys. For the rest of your life, just periodically pick up a money management or a wealth management book. Like, again, it's just a lifelong journey, and it's just something to always learn about, and it's fascinating. I hope you think that it is, because I think it's really interesting and fascinating. So, okay, let's dive in. Number one, the first like money concept I want to talk about is that either you control your money or your money controls you. And this whole program is called Master Your Money. So it is pretty obvious that we want to be in control of our financial lives, not for money to control us. That's when it gets ugly. That's when it's hard. Money is an excellent slave, but a horrible master. That's a quote by somebody else. I'm not sure who. You don't want to be a slave to your money. You want to be in control of it. You want to master it. Okay, so that's like a big money concept. And that what I believe falls into that concept is the concept of stewardship. I'm going to use that word and that term a lot, which just basically means you're stewarding something that's not really yours. A steward is never the owner. A steward is just the manager of someone else's possessions, someone else's property. We don't use the term much in just our everyday language in America. And usually it's just within maybe Christian circles that you would use the term stewardship. But that's essentially what it means, is you're stewarding and managing something that actually doesn't belong to you. And so stewardship is the use of God-given resources for the accomplishment of God-given goals. And when I say resources, the obvious thing that comes to mind is money, but it not only includes money. We're going to be talking a lot about money, but often what falls into stewardship a lot is how you use your time. You know, how good are you at being a good steward of the time you've been given on this earth? That we're not promised tomorrow. So that's something God gives us, is time and life, and he sustains our life. And so what are you going to do with it? How are you going to steward it? The time that he's given you to live on this earth. Your talents, your gifts, your resources, your wisdom. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's just anything that God gives you that then you have the responsibility to manage. And ideally, to manage and use in a way that would glorify God. Okay, so that's the concept of stewardship. So has he given you the gift of leadership? And if he has, how are you stewarding that? How are you using that gift? Because just as important to manage our money and steward our money well, and it can create some major tension in your life when you don't. Also, not using your gifts And your talent can create some major tension, some major regret, some major heartache. That if you've been given the gift of leadership, and given that talent, and to not use it to your fullest ability is just as harmful as not stewarding your money well. Okay, has he given you the gift of encouragement? Has he given you the gift of time? Has he given you the gift of energy, the gift of wisdom? How are you using those gifts as well as your money that he's given to you? And it takes a lot of discernment to know how to use them. And I think one thing that's tricky about this life is that we walk through different seasons. And different seasons mean we have discernment on using different gifts. And it does take a lot of discernment. And sometimes we think it should just always look the same. But as we walk through different seasons, we're usually stewarding something different than that God has given us. Right now, a lot of my time, the way I steward my time is very, very different than the way I stewarded my time without children. Okay, because I'm in a different season. So what was being a good steward of my time before kids would be being a bad steward of my time now with children. Okay, so we walk through different seasons, and so be flexible enough to know that things change, and it takes a lot of discernment and prayer to know how to pivot and adjust to the changes in seasons. That I've gone through seasons where it was appropriate for me to steward my money in a certain way, and then other seasons when it wouldn't have been. Okay, so I know we like to usually think of things as like black and white. This is right, this is wrong. But a lot of things are gray. And a lot of times it's the season of life you're in that changes what was once an acceptable stewardship of time, energy, resources, now becomes a little bit different. So it takes a lot of godly wisdom and discernment. Discernment and wisdom takes a lot of time in prayer and in God's presence. And if there's one thing I think I pray the most is just for wisdom and discernment, and that God would guide my steps, guide my thinking, guide my path, give me wisdom and discernment with how I use my time, my money, my resources, and my talent. Okay, so join me in that prayer. Did you like the video by Jay John? You guys, I stumbled across that years ago where he's talking about the donuts. It's like a hilarious story about these donuts, and his accent makes it even more funny. And his whole point is like, they're all God's donuts. And I hope you enjoyed that. I think it was just such an effective way to get the message across that we are just stewards. We're stewards of the donuts. They're all God's donuts, and we're just managing them. And I think this is such a foundational understanding for our money and resources. And what I believe this does, to know that it's all God's donuts anyways. Okay, everything we've been given is God's. And if you don't have that foundational understanding, I would spend a lot of time exploring that. Or maybe if your certain faith walk does not support that belief, I would dive into that and dig into that, because that is truly a foundational truth that I base my life on, that everything I've been given is not mine anyways. It is mine to manage and is owned by God, like the true owner of everything I've been given. And what that does, when you can understand it like that, it creates such freedom in your life to know what you have is not yours anyways. And so it takes it out of your heart. I know a lot of us, I guess I'll just speak for myself, like just this fear of like, I never want to be greedy or materialistic about my money or my resources. And by viewing them as not mine anyways, they're just mine to manage, it takes it right out of my heart. So it doesn't have to become this idol. Also, it fosters this mindset of gratitude. Like, oh my goodness, what we've been given, you guys. Give me a list of what you've been provided with today, just because you opened your eyes and woke up, and like the blessings and the resources and the provision that flood all of our lives the moment we wake up every day. When we can focus on that and know that it comes from God, like it just gives us this heart and mindset of gratitude. I think it's important to make or list or even say out loud just this list of things you're grateful for. Even Even if right now you have a low income, or maybe you're in a financially struggling, ugly situation, because I realize some people are there. It's just an ugly financial situation right now, or a scary financial situation. Even when you're in those places, we still have so much to be grateful for, you guys. I think it's important to remember that. I would guess, regardless of your financial situation right now, I would guess all of you have a roof over your head. That's God's provision for you. It's His safety, His protection for you and your family. I would bet you can drink clean water today by just turning on the faucet. Okay, do you know how uncommon that is in the rest of the world to have clean water? Boom, right there. And we can make it hot or cold or warm. I would bet most of you jumped in the shower this morning and could make it whatever temperature that felt comfortable for you, and could take as long of a shower as you wanted. I bet when you go to bed tonight, you'll have a bed, a blanket, and a pillow. I bet most of your homes have heating and air conditioning. I would guess you know that you're going to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner tonight, and that your children are too. Okay, and the list goes on and on and on, doesn't it? That we are so abundantly provided for. And let us remember that today, because it fosters a heart and a mind of gratitude. And also, I think it alleviates anxiety to know and trust that it's all God's anyways. Whenever I have moments of financial stress or anxiety or whatever it is, concern, I'm like, oh, it's all God's anyways. He's got it. I'm just going to manage it the best I can right now. It's not mine to worry about. It's not mine to stress about. Okay, so it alleviates anxiety that I think we can often carry on our shoulders when it comes to our financial lives. Now, that doesn't mean that we aren't intentional about it. Okay, some Christians think, oh, it's all God's anyway, so I don't really need to manage it. No, you need to manage it, but we don't have to have anxiety about it. So let's learn to be good managers of what He has provided for us. And you guys, let's teach this to our children. Oh my goodness. Can't they just have like really greedy hearts very naturally, those little kids, unless they're taught something different? And, I thought I've been thinking lately, there's this whole talk about millennials, which I happen to be a millennial. I know not everyone on this hangout is, but I know we probably have a lot of millennials. And one thing they say about millennials is that we're entitled and that we just expect things. And I'm like, man, if they're saying that about the millennials, like, what are they going to say about our children? And so I just have this focus on raising grateful children who have hearts of gratitude, children who don't just expect things just because. That is a focus that I have, that I know I can't wait until they're older till they can really understand. It starts now when they're little. And I'm very intentional about seeking out ways to grow in them hearts of gratitude. Always looking for practical ways to do this. And so I kind of grew up, I hate to use the word poor because that's such a relative word. Poor in America is not poor in other parts of the country, but grew up with not a lot. There were 5 kids in our family. My mom didn't work until after we were all out of the house. And so we had my dad's income, which was an average income. And so we had a roof over our heads. We had food. We had what we needed, but often didn't have what we wanted and did not have a lot. And anything I wanted, once I was 12 years old and could work, I got my first job at 12 just so I could have a little extra spending money. I had to work for and earn myself. And although I resented it in high school and college, that I didn't get this allowance that I saw my friends get, I couldn't do things that I saw my friends' parents pay for. And for some reason, I had really wealthy friends. I don't even know how that happened. All my friends around me were like super wealthy. And I was the one with the job that my parents were just not going to pay for it. I had to work for it. And so I resented it then. But of course now as an adult, I'm like, that was so good for me. That taught me so many good lessons. That taught me to work hard. It taught me to not be entitled. It taught me just so many things. And so since I have had children, it's always been a concern of mine, like, I grew up with a grateful heart and was grateful for things literally because I didn't get them. And so when I did get them, I was really grateful for them. So how do I teach my kids that? Because they're growing up wealthy. They're not wealthy. Their parents are wealthy. But they're broke. Let's be clear. My kids are broke. But how do I teach them that gratitude when they're going to grow up wealthy? And so I'm always looking for practical ways. And for all you moms with young kids out there, your grandmas who have raised kids and have done it successfully, I would love to hear ideas. But here's one thing we did this past week was spring break. And I'm way too pregnant and uncomfortable right now to travel to get on an airplane or get in a car for a long period of time. It's just not an option. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a lot of time off for their spring break and just do fun things with them and, just plan some fun stuff that they like to do that I like to do. Which honestly, any sort of activity or effort right now with my kids is like a major sacrifice because I'm waddling around everywhere I go, but it's all good. All is well. And so I planned this week for them and wanted to do fun things, but I'm like, I want to do it without showing them that you have to spend a lot of money to have fun. I don't want them to see me spend a lot of money. I want to plan things for free just to model for them that you can have an awesome, fun, joyful week without having to spend money. And so we just planned picnics at the park, and we went to the zoo, which we had season passes already. We packed our lunch. Instead of going out to lunch, we set up a lot of play dates. And really every day I had an opportunity to go out to eat, but I made plans to pack a lunch or pack food or pack snacks, even though I would prefer to go out to eat. And it's a lot easier to just do that than to plan ahead and make sure you've got all the supplies that you need. But I just wanted them to see, and I wanted to model for them fun and family time without spending money. I didn't want them to see me pull out my purse every time we went somewhere. And they probably didn't even notice. I mean, they're not old enough to really be tuned into those things. But I also believe that it's about what's caught, not necessarily about what is taught. And so we just had a beautiful week. I mean, we just frolicked in the sunshine, had an amazing time. It was just this awesome, awesome week. And then of course it ended with Easter weekend. Also made a decision not to buy them Easter clothes, not to buy them new clothes. Now, that's what I would prefer to do because I love to see my kids in really cute matching clothes. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do it this year because they're really too young to even care. Okay, Ian, my sensitive, intuitive soul, my oldest child, doesn't even like new clothes. Okay, it is like a battle to get him to wear anything new because he doesn't like change. He just wants to wear his comfortable clothes he's very familiar with and feels comfortable in. And so to get him to wear a new outfit is like pulling teeth. Okay, so he really doesn't care. Eli, he's too young to even notice. Now Aria cares about her clothes and loves her outfits that she puts together. And I love her style. But even then, I'm like, she's got the rest of her life to do that. While she's young, I just want her to pick something that she likes to wear right now. And do you know what she picked? I wish I had a picture of it. You guys, she picked this when we were in Spain last year for the NSD trip. We were coming home and we're like, crap, we forgot to get the kids a little something. Okay, we did that once, and so you do it once, and there's always that expectation. And so we always get them a little something when we travel. And so we're like, crap, we forgot to buy the kids something, and we're literally in the airport, heading home. And so we go to this little convenience store in the airport I think we were in Barcelona, and we find this cute little Spanish dress for Aria. She doesn't really wear it. She thinks it's a ladybug costume. It's this little senorita Hispanic dress. She never wears it. When is the time she picks to wear it? On Easter. So that's what she chose to wear to church that day. But anyways, I wanted to again just model for them that you don't need clothes for every new holiday, and learn to enjoy what you already have. And so those are just little practical ways that I'm trying to teach my kids to have hearts of gratitude, and to not just expect things just because they can have them and because we can afford to buy them. And so anyways, we're sitting on the couch Sunday night, just kind of talking and going over the week, and Ian can get in these really cranky moods, like super cranky. And he didn't want to go to school the next day, and he was just in a bad mood about it. And he's like, we didn't do that many fun things on spring break anyways. And Cliff and I, like, our faces were like, he must have known something was wrong, because right away he kind of like knew that he said something wrong, because we had such shocked looks on our faces. And so so Cliff gets up off the couch, and he goes and gets our iPad, and he pulls up this YouTube video. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is he really going to show him that? It's this YouTube video of just the heartbreaking situation that children are in India, homeless, without parents, without food. I mean, it's just heartbreaking. I mean, I was like weeping when we were watching it, and he shows it to Ian to make the point that you have a mommy and daddy who love you. You have food on the table for every meal. And we talked to him about it. We had this conversation about being grateful and recognizing what you have, and that most people in this world don't have these things. And so it was a really good teachable moment. And so another thing, we have no tolerance in our home for complaining about food. Okay, you know how kids can kind of do that. I don't want this, or this, I don't like this salad, or whatever. We have like zero tolerance for complaining about food, because I did BSF and the life of Moses. When the Israelites are wandering in the desert, they get in the most trouble with God when they start complaining about his provision. You know, he provided the manna and they get sick of it, and he provided water, and he provided the pillar of fire by night, and the pillar of clouds during the day, and just constant provision for them. And there's these so many moments when they have epic fails and just complain so much about God's provision, and they get in like some serious trouble with God for doing that. And that taught me, it made me aware of my own personal complaining about God's provision, and how we can so easily fall into that rut and that trap of just complaining. And then it just, I mean, like I said, I have no tolerance for complaining about food, because it is God's provision. And even if they don't love everything that I make for them, we do not allow them to complain about their food. And every time it comes up, it's just this teachable moment, like, be grateful for what you're provided for. This is God's provision and blessing and abundance for us. Most people in the world don't have this opportunity to have such an abundance of food. And so anyways, you guys, God has not entrusted the resources you possess to someone else. He's given them to you. Okay, we don't own them, but he's given them to us to manage. And only we are accountable for managing the use of God's resources entrusted to us. And he entrusted us all differently with different resources, but he gave yours to you to manage. And so let us all ask the question of ourselves, like, and of God, like, what would you have me do with the money and the resources, the time and the talent that you've entrusted me with? And then listen to his answer. And start asking, like, God, what does good stewardship look like for me in my life? What would be honoring and glorifying to you as I steward the time, money, resources, talent that you have given me? Also, it's very difficult to be a good steward when you don't know what you have. Okay? How do you steward things that you don't even know have been entrusted to you? And I think we default to living this life of being a responder and a reactor to the things that happen to us, rather than being proactive planners to effectively use what we've been given. And I'm going to give you a little exercise in a couple of minutes that can help you to really identify, like, okay, what do I have? What have I been given? I think you'd be shocked at how long the list is and how long you can keep writing about what you've been provided for, that now is yours to steward for God's glory. Okay, so let's move on to number 2 right now, you guys. And I've got a lot of texts coming in. I just want to make sure everything's good to go on our live stream right now, and I think that it is. Okay, so the second bigger idea that I want to cover. So we just talked about stewardship and how, like, either you are in control of your money or it's controlling you. So let's move on to the emotional connection you have with your money. By the way, the first topic I just talked about, Ron Blue in his book Master Your Money, which is one of our book choices, digs deeper into a lot of these concepts. The second one is your emotional connection with money. Susie Orman's 9 Steps to Financial Freedom digs into this concept a lot, like how you're emotionally connected to money. Also, the Six-Figure Woman by, I think it's Barbara Stanny, if that's how you say her name, dives into this too, and is especially appropriate for women in the business world, and how to be what she calls an under-earner, to earning a level of income that, and learning to understand that it's okay to do it, and that you deserve to get paid for the service that you are offering to people. So we all have an emotional connection to money. It most likely started as a child. As we first started to interact with money and see our parents interact with money, we started to have these connections, these mental connections and emotional connections. And so what are some of your first memories of money? When's the first time you were given money as maybe a gift? When is the first time you had a wallet to keep your money in, or a piggy bank? What are some of those first memories, and what was taught in your home about money that can help you to become more aware of your emotional connection? And on page 13 and 14 in your workbook, there are questions that you get points for this week if you just go through and answer them. And the goal of these pages of questions is just to support you in a new level of awareness to your emotional connection to money, because that awareness can lead to more effective choices and decisions, or can create some freedom. Sometimes our emotional connection to money is a burden, and we need to have some freedom from that. And so here are just some random examples, so you know what I mean by emotional connection. I want to give you a couple of examples. These are just random examples. Let's say when you fight with your mom growing up, to make up for it, she took you out shopping to, like, make up for the fight. Okay, so that connection to money could mean that you spend money for comfort. Okay, so spending money to feel better, or spending money to mend a relationship. You may have that connection and have learned that and not even realize it. So maybe now you spend money when you're not feeling so great. And as a way to comfort yourself, you start spending. Or maybe when you have a fight with your kids or with your husband, you look to money to mend the relationship, which is, may not be a healthy response to mending a relationship. Here's another example. Maybe every time your dad or mom got a promotion, you had to move to a new city for that new job so they could make more money. And so maybe you connect money to pain, because every time you had to move, it was a loss. You lost your friends. You had to start all over again. There was pain involved. And so maybe money equals pain, and you avoid managing your money because you connect it with pain and loss. And of course, again, not a healthy connection, because then you're avoiding stewarding what you've been given. And usually when we avoid stewarding it, money doesn't just manage itself and take care of itself. We've got to do that. It's our role and our responsibility. So we all have this emotional connection, and it will serve you well to be aware of it, whether it's positive or negative. I think awareness to your emotional connection with your financial life is important. Usually our financial lives are very private. People don't just go around, if they're at a party or out to eat with friends, talking about how much debt they have. or talking about their mortgage payment. You know, most of the time that's not just happening in social scenes. It's a more private thing that can feel like a secret. And usually those kinds of secrets can produce some guilt and shame. And so maybe it starts with you just digging it up so it doesn't feel like such a secret and so that you can deal with some of the issues, which can lead to more freedom. Um, if you got into this group early enough, then you most likely did the early bird voucher. If you did not, if you got in sort of late or straggled in right before we started the program, I want to encourage you to do the early bird voucher. It's just a couple of simple tasks that help you. One of them is to help you discover some of your connection to money. It's this money wake up call test. And it's several pages long, but it's pretty quick and easy. And you just go through marking true or false about these statements about money. And you just mark it if it's true for you or if it's false for you. And then at the end, it's a simple way to add up your points. And so even some of those questions may trigger some of your emotional connections to money. So I want to encourage you to do that. And then on the last page of that test is just an opportunity for you to write down your thoughts and your reflections and maybe what stood out to you. And I just put that in there in case it sparks something in you. I mean, we're not going to really do anything else with the test. I'm not going to have you post your score or anything like that. It just is for you. It's for you to have a new level of awareness. And so go back and look through it. What really caught your attention? What maybe struck a chord with you? What felt really uncomfortable to maybe answer true or false? Because you know how we all feel like there's the right answer and the wrong answer. And we always want to have the right answer, but then maybe you know in your heart that no, my answer is probably not the one I should have. Which ones were those for you? And how could you use that new awareness to create more freedom and success in your financial life? I do want to comment on, by the way, I spent a lot of time just looking for these money tests. I didn't want to create one myself because I really didn't feel equipped to do that. And so I just Googled a lot of them. And this is the best one of the ones I saw. It's the best one that I found that I felt really touched in a lot of different categories. But she does say a couple of things that I'm not necessarily supporting. One of them is I have a deep knowing that I'm always being supported by the universe, capital U, universe. I don't know what that really means. So I'm not supporting that concept. Whenever I read things like capital U, universe, I just defer to our almighty God and creator. So I have a deep knowing that I'm always being supported by my provider, who is God. And so I want to answer false for that because I'm the universe, what's that? That doesn't support me. God supports me. So you can read into that whatever you would like and whatever would support your way of thinking. Okay, so yeah, so all that to say that I want to encourage you to spend time going through the money wake-up call test if you haven't already, and then answering the questions on the pages in the workbook 13 and 14. That is on your voucher for this week, to find out that connection. And then if you want to dig even deeper, Susie Orman's 9 Steps to Financial Freedom is a good book to read on that. Another concept, so we're moving on to the third of 10 right now, is just the concept of putting a focus on money is about putting people first. This was the first time I had ever heard this when I read Susie Orman's 9 Steps to Financial Freedom. And she really spends a lot of time here making the point that your focus on your money and a proper stewardship of what you've been given is all about putting people first. So let's talk about that. And when I say people first, I really mean the people you love the most. It's putting your family first, and then after that, other people in need. And so I think there's this misconception, especially in Christian circles, and this belief that a focus on money is greedy and or materialistic. And so I think a lot of people in Christian circles sort of defer to not focusing on it and kind of deferring to God is good, he'll take care of me, which is true. But still, it's very clear in his word how we're to manage and be good stewards. So I think that's Christian for like lazy. I don't want to deal with it. So I'm just going to say, God is good. He'll take care of me. Let's not fall into that. Let's not fall into that category. So I want to bust that myth. If maybe you thought that, and maybe you would never say that, but maybe you believe that. You know how we can believe things in our mind and our heart, but we wouldn't really ever say them out loud. And it would sound funny if we did, but we actually really do believe that. I want to bust that conception or myth that a focus on money is greedy or materialistic, because I don't believe that. Because I think it's actually the opposite is the case. And that when you don't focus on your money, it's being irresponsible. And it's actually a disservice, an absolute disservice to your family and the people around you. Some people ignore money thinking that that's how I am not materialistic. I just kind of ignore it because I don't want to be materialistic. And so you intentionally creating a more healthy financial life is a service to the people you love the most and then everyone else around you. The more healthy you are financially, the less you stress about money, which means the less you think about it. And in addition to that, the more energy and resources you have to give. Okay, so the more healthy you are financially, the less you stress and think about money. Because it's just not a worry anymore. It's not a concern. You don't have to like wake up and think about it and worry about it or go to bed worrying about it. Okay, so it's not on your mind as much. And then it creates more wealth that you can share with everyone else. Let me share an emotional connection I discovered as I have been on this journey. I went to college and chose teaching. For a variety of different reasons, I chose to get a degree in early childhood education. And there were a lot of different reasons that went into this choice, but one of them that I discovered in my journey of understanding how I connect to money is I chose it because it was a career where you could not make a lot of money. And I thought I would have never said this out loud, but I have discovered this like deeper thought process when I chose that career. I thought there was something really noble about that. Like, I'm choosing teaching because I know you can't make a lot of money in that career. So there is something just noble about that. And there was some fear in me. Didn't realize that at the time. There's fear in me about choosing a career with a higher income because somewhere in my heart and mind, I thought that that was wrong. And that it was, and maybe not wrong per se, but maybe better to choose the career that you didn't make a lot of money. Okay. And so when I started making a really great income in Mary Kay, I was very uncomfortable with that out of a fear that it was wrong. Now, let me tell you, I was excited about the high commission checks and it was awesome, but there was some underlying fear that maybe that was wrong or materialistic or greedy. Okay, so that's an emotional connection I've discovered. And you guys, it's nothing my parents taught me. They don't believe that. They don't buy into that thing. And it's not something that they taught me, but I believe, and I've learned about this more in the book, Thou Shalt Prosper. That's another book on the book list written by Daniel Lapin. He's actually good friends with Dave Ramsey. He is a Jewish rabbi and is really has a brilliant mind about the service that having a successful business offers to our country and the people around you. And it's really intellectually stimulating and very thought-provoking. He covers a lot of different topics, so I kind of felt like, woo, we are just like covering like everything. Whereas I think he could have, well, it doesn't matter what I think he should have done to write his book, but he does cover a lot of things. And he did this whole chapter on how wealth is made the villain in America, specifically wealth created by a successful business. And you may have the thought like, no, that's not what we believe. That's what America's all about. But I think we have made this shift in America, even though America was built on people just building small businesses, small successful businesses is like where we came from. It's our roots. But at some point, it became villainized. And they did a study, and 74% of Hollywood movies that are produced today, the villain in the movie is a wealthy businessman. A greedy, wealthy businessman is made to be the villain in 74% of the movies that we watch. So think about the influence on our thinking that has had. Most people who've created wealth in a business have done it really from a desire to serve others with a great product or service. And all of us in Mary Kay, we know that you don't really build a successful business without really wanting to serve people and to love people. And sure, are there greedy, wealthy people out there? Yeah, of course there are. You can find examples of that, absolutely. But there's also greedy, poor people too. Greedy is not does not discriminate to the level of income you make. You can be greedy whether poor or rich. Greedy is a state of your heart, not necessarily a reflection of your income. Okay, and so I think I picked up somewhere along the way in growing up that wealth was connected with greed. I picked that up somewhere from somehow, and that's something I've really had to like learn about and overcome. Is that wealth really can be about glorifying God and serving people. Okay, let's go on to number 4. Number 4 is ignorance is not bliss. And so to not know about your financial situation, I already made this point in the beginning, it's just ignorant to not dive into this, at least at some level, even if maybe your husband carries the main role in your financial life. To not have some level of awareness about it, I think is ignorance. And money is something it's just not going to go away, you guys. It's not going to go away. Again, we make choices about money every single day. There's no part of our lives that money doesn't touch. And money problems or stresses do not and will not fix themselves. It takes an intentional person who's willing to figure it out and work through it. Also, when it relates to debt, you can easily wander into debt, but you don't wander out. You have to be like beast mode focused if you want to get out of debt. So easy to get in, challenging to walk out, although not impossible. There's questions on page 11 in the workbook that you were to do with your early bird voucher. So if you haven't done this, go back and do it. And it's just basic questions. There's like 3 or 4 that asks like, what do you need to live? Like, what money do you need to bring in to just like pay the bills? And then the other question was, how much debt do you have? And I think there was 1 or 2 more. And so one thing I want to say is if you weren't aware of some of these numbers, kind of right off the top of your head, or could at least find them very quickly, there may be a certain level of ignorance you're living in as it relates to your personal financial life. Like if you didn't know, like, boom, we need this much to pay our bills. We have this much debt listed out. How much? What's the amount? I have this much inventory in my business. Like if you don't know some of those things, it's time to take the next step in having more clarity about your financial life. Because my journey of learning more in this area started with realizing that I was ignorant about our financial life and goals. That's really what it started with. It started with this like all of a sudden crazy awareness of like, I don't really know what's going on. And that makes me really uncomfortable. And so then I got like beast mode focused and serious about it. But it came from that feeling of like, I don't even know what our goals are. We don't really even have any. All I know is money is coming in and money's going out. And that awareness just made me very uncomfortable. And I'll share my personal story closer to the end of this hangout. Okay, number 5, let's talk about investing. I just want to share some numbers with you because I want you all to understand the power of investing. And if you are already investing, I just want to encourage you to stay the course with it. and to maybe find other ways to invest more or to invest more effectively. Okay? Because if you invest $2,000 each year, I'm just going to go with that kind of lower round number, easy number to for most people to wrap their minds around. $2,000 a year invested. So that's $167 per month. Returning at least 10%. So earning a 10% interest on average over the course of your working life. Okay? So for most people, it's like from 20 to 60 or 30 to 70, somewhere within that over the course of your working life. And 10% return on your investment is a pretty average return we can count on over time. Sometimes it's going to be higher, sometimes it's going to be lower, but over the course of American history, that 10%, if not even 12% return on what you invest is a pretty reliable number. So let's say you invest $2,000 a year, $167 a month for the course of your working life. And if that age ends at 60, you would have an account funded with $1 million. You'd be a millionaire just by investing that little chunk every single month. So the point I want to make is that you don't have to put $1 million in when it comes to investing. You don't have to put $1 million in to make $1 million. That's the beauty of investing, is because the interest compounds and it starts to grow exponentially over time. So to not do that is literally saying, I don't really want $1 million by the time I retire. I don't want to have any retirement. To not do that, you're eliminating the opportunity for your money to work for itself and for it to really grow. And for your money to make more money. You don't have to make more money. And let's say your income stayed the same. It was just $167 a month that you're putting away. You can literally grow that into $1 million and be a millionaire by the time you're ready to retire. And so where can you find that? Because I know for some people it's like, man, I'm barely paying my bills, much less finding an extra $167. But I truly believe, regardless of where you're at with your income, that anybody can grow to this level and find ways to at least put that much away. Even if you have to start with 50, even if you have to start with 10, you can start somewhere and grow to that level. And so where do you find that? I think the number one way is to eliminate debt. If you do have debt, especially consumer debt, you are probably paying debt, using more than $167 a month to eliminate that debt or to pay down those credit cards. And so if you get into beast mode about doing that, it creates that extra money that now, instead of paying off debt, you can put into an investment account. I think most people could shave it off their grocery bill. If you're more intentional about coupons and eating maybe more simply and saying no to some like higher ticket items for a while, not forever, but just for a season, I think you could shave $167 a month off your grocery bill. Going out to eat. I know. I mean, we love to go out to eat in America, don't we? I know you could shave $167 off of just packing the lunch, making coffee at home, not going to Starbucks, and cut out that expense. Your cable bill, your magazine subscription, your gym membership that you never go to, all those things that we spend money on that we don't really need. What if you cut out some of those? Buying lattes, I've already mentioned that. Buying clothing that often most people, if you looked in their closet, don't necessarily need it. I know we want it and we like to have it, but do you need it? Or maybe shopping, maybe you don't eliminate all clothing, maybe shop at different stores where you can get a better deal or wait for things to go on sale. I think it's just like stupid simple to be a millionaire by the time you retire. And if you don't, it's just dumb. Like, how dumb are we? Like, we can all do this, you guys. We can all do this and create security and abundance in our future. It just takes a little bit of an intention and a little bit of education about it. Compounding interest has been known to be called the eighth wonder of the world because it really almost kind of magically takes this small amount and turns it into something much bigger over time. Okay, that's the key, is you want to invest over time. But it becomes this like magical thing that you want to take advantage of. And so start now, even if it's a really low number, start now. And I'll give you more practical advice on that in just a minute. Yeah, you don't have to save $1 million to end up with $1 million by the time you retire. Okay, here's another example of compounding interest. Only $4.79 per day. The cost of a specialty drink at Starbucks. Spent on non-productive purchases. Okay, $4.79, even if you're not a Starbucks latte person. $4.79 spent on non-productive, just consumer frivolous spending results in overspending $1,750 per year. Isn't that crazy? You guys, we so easily just spend, a dollar here, a dollar there, $5 here, $5 there on just stupid stuff. Do you know that adds up to $1,750 in a year? If instead of just buying stupid stuff, you took that $1,750 and invested it over the course of your working life, earn 10% on that account, compounded annually, that $4.79 per day would actually be $850,000 that you could have had. Okay, so just think about that. When you retire, if you just cut out $4.79 per day, that could create $850,000 if you invest that money versus spend it. And so the next time you get a drink at Starbucks, or, oh my gosh, there's just so many stupid things we spend money on, aren't there? Just ask yourself, what is this really costing me in the future? And sometimes it's hard to wrap our minds around because $4 isn't much. It's easy. It's easy even if you're in a struggling financial situation. $4, no big deal, no big deal. It's easy, but we just don't realize what it costs us in the future to have all that frivolous spending, especially if there's a lot of it happening. Most of us don't think we're frivolous about our money. Like most people don't have that thought like, oh yeah, I am frivolous with my money. Most of us don't think that, but I think we all have areas of luxury and consumerism in purchases that we just don't need. So let's have a new level of awareness of that. And so where do you start? If you want to start investing and literally have no idea, a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA is a good place to start. And a Roth IRA, especially because the money that you put in has already been taxed, but when you pull it out, it's not taxed. So there's a major, tax advantage on that. And so either your current financial institution, wherever you bank, probably has an option, or you can just research some options of local financial institutions that would allow you to open a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA, and you can set it up so it happens automatically. The day you get paid, boom, there's just like you're paying a bill, there's money that comes out of your checking account straight into that account, so you almost just never see it and never have the option to spend it. It's just an automatic thing. So when could you set that up if you don't currently have something like that in your life? When could you set that up? When could you do some research on that? When could you have a conversation with your husband or your wife or significant other about setting that up? And you don't even have to know about mutual funds or the stock market. Usually there's somebody at that financial institution who will advise you on that. Most of those, you do pay a little fee with that, or pay them a percentage. So you want to avoid paying any large fees for that. But you're just basically paying for their expertise in that area, so you don't necessarily have to be savvy about the stock market. I think eventually that's a great goal to have, but if you're just wanting to start saving, like learning about the stock market may not be your next step right now. That's like 20 steps down the road. Right now, you just want to make sure you're putting money away every single month that's growing, that you can't take out. That's the other thing too. You can't have access to taking it out. You can't spend it. You have to put it in a place where you just, and Roth IRAs, you actually can withdraw them, but you just want to set it up so it's not just like a credit card you could swipe or a transfer you could make. You don't want it to be easy to access that money at all. So it's just being put away for the future. I think people who wait to start, there's a lot of people who wait to start investing. Like they're waiting for a better financial situation. They're waiting to get out of debt, although Dave Ramsey does advise to do that. And I just think it's a big mistake to wait, because you miss out on the eighth wonder of the world, which is compounding interest over time. Okay. Number 6, let's move on to the topic of consumer spending and debt. Consumer spending and debt. Whenever money is used consumptively, it is just gone forever and can never be used for anything in the future. Ron Blue, in his book, Master Your Money, he calls it all pre-trash. And I love that. I'm like, that is so awesome. Just all this crap that we buy, it's all just pre-trash anyways. Isn't that the truth? Like, so much stuff ends up in a Goodwill bag or broken in the trash, or you need a new one, or your kids ruined it, or all of it just turns into junk over time, or just something you don't need, or really just like a ton of clutter. It just becomes clutter in your house, and there's just this level of chaos when there's a lot of clutter. And so I've loved that thought when thinking about just buying something consumptively. I'm like, it's just pre-trash anyways. I don't need it. I don't need it to clutter up my house. And so the years following World War II, in our country, in America, there was just such incredible growth in our affluence as a nation, which is amazing. I mean, it changed people's lives. It gave people new opportunity. There's no other country I'd want to live in. I mean, no people ever have possessed the material resources that we have access to, even for people with a low income. I mean, poor in America is not poor when you compare it relatively to other places in this world. We truly are a blessed people and a blessed nation, yet that has led to some significant cracks in our economic structure and in our ways of thinking. And it's led to just some downfalls. And so I think even in Christian communities, we would be led to believe that we have a right to a lifestyle that may be well beyond what we can ever afford. And it's an easy trap to fall into, to think you deserve or should be entitled to a certain lifestyle or standard of living that's beyond what you can afford. And it's why the reason so many people are in debt, pursuing a lifestyle that they can't actually afford with cash. Our national debt is over 18 with 12 zeros behind it. That's trillion, right? Is that trillion? I think that's trillion. I think 18 trillion or maybe gabillion. I don't know what comes after trillion. But it's daunting and horrifying. If we were to pay off that debt, every man, woman, and child in America would need to give $56,000 to pay off that amount of money. We live in a culture where overspending is completely acceptable, often not even questioned, and some would even argue that it's necessary to overspend and spend money that we don't have. So let's talk about debt. There are 5 different types of debt. So not all debt falls into one category. And I think this is important to understand, especially when building a business. First kind of debt is credit card debt, which is mainly used on just consumerism, frivolous spending, mainly, not always, but mainly just used on pre-trash, a bunch of crap we don't need. Secondly, the kind of debt is consumer debt, which is kind of similar to a credit card, and it could possibly be on a credit card, but it's like your car, having a car loan or a car payment. It's wanting to furnish your home and using their financing. So you're financing your furnishing versus like saving up the money to pay for it in cash. So those are two types of debt you want to absolutely avoid at all costs. Out of the 5 types, those are 2 types that you just don't want to have. And if you do, you want to go on Dave Ramsey's plan to pay it off. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. So here's the deception of usually credit card and consumer debt that I think is important to be aware of. The deception is that we think we are raising our standard of living. But what is actually happening is that we're lowering it. We're lowering it now and especially in the future. Because every dollar spent on consumption that we can't pay cash for. Okay, there's a big difference between buying furniture for your house and paying cash versus putting it on a credit card or financing it. So every dollar spent on a consumption that you cannot actually afford, and afford means you have the cash for it. Credit cards like let us believe that we can actually afford this stuff. But if there is not cash right now to spend on the items you are purchasing, you can't afford it, is how the exact definition would work. And I think people are confused about what they can even afford. They're like, oh, I've got space on this card, I can afford it. That's not really what afford means. So every dollar spent on consumption is gone forever, and every dollar invested creates more for the future, actually increasing your standard of living in the long run. Because remember, when you invest it, it's going to grow over time. So you're increasing your net worth over time. And so there's just this mega temptation, you guys, in our country. I mean, major, major temptation. And if you don't think you're tempted by it, I don't know, maybe live in reality a little bit more than you are, because I think we all, I think it's hard to avoid not being tempted by appearing to have a certain standard of living. That is a strong, strong temptation to like have the appearance of a certain standard of living. And we do it with our homes, with how we decorate our homes, our cars, our clothes, our vacations, just anything on the outer surface that people can see, anything people can see. And so where the discipline comes is saying no to those things until you have the cash for them. Because those things aren't wrong. And please don't hear me say that. I don't think any of those things are wrong in and of themselves. I think we were meant to enjoy our income and our wealth. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there's something going on in your heart. There's something deeper happening in your heart if there's a lot of consumption happening that there's not the cash available for. And more than just putting you in a bad financial situation, it's like what's going on deeper inside that temptation to appear to have a high standard of living is so strong that you're willing to put yourself and your family in a really risky financial situation. Okay, let's move on to the other types of debt. So there's credit card, consumer, you avoid those at all costs. Third is your mortgage, which a home is considered an investment because when you sell it, you get a return on the investment, although it's not the investment it used to be. And there's not the same growth in the value of your home as there used to be. That used to be stronger in a different financial time in America, but it's not as strong. I still believe it's an investment. But so many people in America are house poor. They're in way too much home for what they can actually afford, and it's strangling them. So there is mortgage debt, and then there's investment liability and investment debt, and then there's business debt. And the last 3 can be used appropriately. Okay, so remember, you avoid the first 2 at all costs. And then the last 3, mortgage, investments, and business investments, can be used. There's ways to use those very, very appropriately. But one thing I want us all to realize is just the risk the risk that can come with just frivolous consumer spending. There's an opportunity cost to consumption. Every dollar we spend today takes a dollar away from our future. No, I'm sorry. Every dollar we spend today, it doesn't just take $1 away from the future. So you spend one today, the thought would be like, I'm taking that $1 away from my future. But the fact is, you spend one today, you're taking multiple dollars away from your future. Because remember how $4.79 per day can be turned into 850,000. It's because of how that money can grow and how that money can work for you, and it works for you in your favor because it grows over time. And so you're spending it today thinking like, oh, it's just a latte, it's just $4 or $5, no big deal. We just don't realize what that can equal in the future when it's properly managed. Now, I am not saying you can never go to Starbucks. I'm not saying that, okay? I love me some Starbucks lattes, okay? But not at the risk of my financial health. And not if there's any debt that exists. That's the first thing to go if you're in any slippery or risky financial situation right now. Okay, so here's some more numbers for you. The average car payment in America is $483 a month. I guess after driving free for 11 years and not having a car payment for like 10 or 11 years, I'm like, really? Like, people are really spending $483 a month on a car? It's insane. Like, thank God for Mary Kay. You guys, we forget sometimes the value of driving for free and the income that leaves in our checking accounts for car payments not to be pulled out. I mean, that's significant. So if you took that 483 and invested it into a Roth IRA over your working life, which is usually 40 years for most people, you guys, do you know what that would equal when you're ready to retire? Are you ready for this? 5.6 million in that account, with the average return of 10% on that investment, $483 a month over your working life. 5.6 million. Again, compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world. So you better really like that car that you got, because it's costing you 5.6 million in a bank account you could have when you retire. Significant, you guys. Isn't that crazy? There is biblical advice about debt in Proverbs 6:5. It comments on debt or owing someone. And it says, give no sleep to your eyelids. Okay, that's a pretty convicting statement. Give no sleep to your eyelids. Linda Tupin says something like, if you went to bed poor, you should have never gotten bed, or something like that. That like, if you're broke, freaking do something about it and go to work. And in the Bible, it says, give no sleep to your eyelids. Get to work, do something about it. Create an income. Okay, give no sleep to your eyelids and deliver yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter. Okay, so Dave Ramsey, guys, in one of the videos that's on your list to watch, he talks about this scripture, and it's so epic because he actually shows this video of a gazelle delivering itself from the hand of the hunter, which I believe is a cheetah chasing after it. Okay, I think I'm back. It says internet connection was lost. Oh, wonderful. Um, Let me make sure you guys can see me. It says I'm live, says we have viewers, but I want to just make sure. I think we're back on, you guys. Whew, glad I could recover that. So what I was talking about was delivering yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter. Um, okay, so I've got to regroup my thoughts here, you guys. Words about being in debt. And God doesn't want us because I mean, it's hard. It's difficult to owe people other things. And God doesn't want us in that position where we're like a slave to somebody else because we had to borrow money. Um, our God is a God of work. Okay. The first thing that God gave Adam to do in the garden was to work. He had to name all the animals because he knows how we're kind of mini versions of God because we're created in his image and he's our creator. And so we're like kind of mini creators and he knows we're at our best and we're the best version of ourselves when we're doing something purposeful. He made us to create. He made us to add value. He made us to work at something purposeful. There's been studies that have shown that people are most satisfied in life, not when they have lots of money, but when they're doing work that's purposeful. Our God is a God of work, and he modeled that. He created for 6 days, then took a day of rest, 1 day of rest. But those other 6 days, he was working, he was creating, he was adding value. And we are to model that. I think a lot of, especially in Christian circles, like, well, I'm just praying and waiting on God and trusting he'll provide. Christian for lazy, you guys. We gotta work hard. There's only one place to go when you're broke, and it's to work, my friends. Let's be people of action, passivity, apathy, and laziness. Action, because that's what our Creator modeled for us. I do believe there can be two extremes. Really? Okay. Thank you, Casline, for saying yes, you can see me. There's two extremes. There is uncontrolled, just frivolous spending. But then on the opposite extreme, there's this complete unwillingness to spend. Both extremes. Okay, we need to avoid consumer spending, especially if it's getting us into more debt and preventing us from investing or tithing or giving. I don't think we're called to be miserly people who hoard all of our money either. And I think it's completely okay to enjoy your income that you make. Okay, so let's avoid those two extremes, because what I don't want you to ever hear me say is that it's wrong to have nice things. Hear me say that. But there's just an order things should go in. People want all the nice things first before they've worked, they've saved, or before they've even asked God, how can I be the best steward of talent and resources and money that you've given me? They just want all the nice things first, and then they'll figure it out, but that's not the order it goes in. Right? We seek God's purpose for how we can be stewards. We work, save, we get out of debt, we give, and then we can enjoy. But sometimes it's just flip-flopping the order of how we get things, and we are just a immediate gratification kind of people. I know it's more fun to just get all the nice stuff first and then figure it out later. It feels fun in that moment, you guys, but it creates such a level of anxiety and regret and instability for your family. Okay, let's move on to topic number 7. And I'm going to talk about debt as it relates to your Mary Kay business, or investment as it relates So I want to spend a little bit of time here before we wrap up 8, 9, and 10. Then I'm going to share my story and just close with a couple of things, okay? So investment as it relates to your Mary Kay business. Remember the 5 different kinds of debt. Consumer and credit card, you avoid at all costs, but business used appropriately. Okay, and so even though you maybe spent it on a credit card, I invested my first inventory on a credit card so that it's credit card debt, but really what it was for me was an investment that I got 100% return on my. And so true credit card debt is where you buy a bunch of stuff that you would never get any of that money back. I mean, unless you returned it to the store. But you're getting stuff that you cannot then turn and create an income with. Right when you take it out of the store, you could never, unless you just returned it, you could usually never resell it for what you paid for it. Same with your car. You drive it off the lot, you can never just return it for what you paid for it. It loses its value. But when I put my inventory on that credit card that was 0%, it made me an income. It was a source of income for my family. And so if you investment inventory, you guys, you made a big commitment to your family and to yourself to create an income. That was basically the commitment and decision that you made. It's like, I'm going to invest X amount of dollars into my Mary Kay inventory to create an income. If you've done that, I just want to challenge you that if you're not already, to honor that commitment that you made. A lot of people make that investment, make that commitment, get the inventory, and take no responsibility for it at all. And by responsibility, I mean that you would actually be booking and holding parties. And so if you made a commitment, made an investment, and are currently not booking and holding parties, or maybe attention to, I mean, guys, get off your butt. Get off your butt and go hold some parties and sell it to create income, opportunity for your family, and honor the commitment that you made. You don't just make money by buying an inventory. You make it by selling it. And the way you sell it is to get off your butt and book some parties and hold some parties and get in front of people so that you have people to sell it to. I've heard way too many times like, oh, I got this inventory and it just didn't work out. How hard did you try, my friend? How many booking attempts did you make? How much training did you invest in yourself to learn the skills? Investment, you take responsibility for it. I'll tell you my initial investment story. Tina France recruited me. She told me she got a $600 inventory when she signed up. And I was like, and this was before I signed up, I'm like, girl, you are crazy. I'm like, I would never having, makeup on hand. That's what I thought of it at that point. I'm like, I would never do that. I'm getting the starter kit and I'm going to see how it goes. Okay, so that was my plan. So I signed up, starter kit, and then I got inventory information. And I believe at that time it was Pam's Next Steps CD that I listened to that was about inventory. And she just laid out the facts and how business works and the advantages of having inventory. And I went from thinking Tina was crazy for spending $600 on her inventory to investing in a Ruby Star order. $2,400 is what I started with. And immediately after I listened to Pam's CD, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Like, it didn't even take any more information than that. It just made sense. Like, it made so much sense to me. And honestly, I felt like, man, if I don't start with inventory, it's a true disadvantage I'm putting myself at, like a true disadvantage. And I still believe that to this day. And I do believe my success initially as a consultant, before I even caught a vision to really stick it out with Mary Kay and go long term, my initial success as a consultant was so significant. I wasn't even team building, you guys. I was just selling. I was selling the product, having parties, selling. Is to me immediately that you can make great part-time money with Mary Kay. I believe it's because I had products on hand. At my debut, I had them all displayed in my apartment, sold $700 at my debut, And I just went to parties and I sold it. And not all parties. Some of you have heard the party where it was supposed to be this mother-daughter party, but all the moms just dropped off their 12-year-olds and then they left and went and had lunch and left me with all the 12-year-old little girls, and I like barely sold anything. Okay, so not every party was a success story. I have gone to parties and I have sold nothing. Okay, that's happened, but I was just consistent, and it's just about numbers and averages. And when you have a zero party, it just means your next high party is right around the corner. And so I was just selling a lot of product for the time I was putting into it. And what kept me motivated, you guys? Couple things, but what was a major source of motivation for me was that inventory that was staring me in the face. It was the products I had, and it was the credit card payment that I needed to make. It kept me motivated. And in moments I didn't feel like holding parties, I didn't feel like doing Mary Kay, that was a source of motivation and good pressure. Sometimes we need a little bit of pressure. And when there's no pressure, there's no action. You chose not to do inventory, and maybe haven't done a whole lot with your Mary Kay business. Pressure to take action? Maybe not. That inventory stared at me in my little 2-bedroom apartment. It stared at me in the back of my car. And it was beckoning me to sell it. And Cliff was like a super big cheerleader at the beginning of my Mary Kay business. He loved me and supported me, and he believed in me, but at that point didn't really believe in Mary Kay. Neither of us, Cliff or I, believed in credit card debt. We were both raised that you don't go into credit card debt. And so the thought of putting it on a credit card, he made one comment to me. We talked about it. He's like, I better not see it in 6 months. Better take care of it, basically. And I don't think he said it in those exact words, but that was the message he was conveying. Like, you better be responsible, take responsibility for it. And that's what I did. And so every week, part of my profit, and so I had my 0% card for 6 months, so that's 24 weeks. So I took my total balance, I didn't divide it by the months, I didn't just make the minimum. No, my friends, that's not how it rolls with credit cards. I just divided it by the weeks that I had it at 0%. And every Sunday night, I would log onto my online banking with this credit card and just pay that amount out of my Mary Kay checking. Mary Kay profits, or part of my profits, going towards paying that off each week. And I knew the amount I needed to sell each week to be able to pay it down, plus reorder, because I didn't want to run out of everything, because that's annoying. So I reordered too and had some profit left over. So that's how I approached it. And I got my initial 2,400. About a month or two later, I got about another 2,400 because I hated not having things on hand. And I could see when I lost sales, like, oh, do you have this? Oh, no, I don't have it, but I can order it for you right away. They'd be like, oh, never mind, I'll get it next time. And I'm like, oh, like if I would have had that, it would have been another sale. So I saw that happen more times than not. And of course, people always say like, oh, it's fine if you have to order it. They say that, but really what everybody wants is immediate gratification. And what they really get excited about is being able to touch it right now and take it home right now. It was obvious. And so I got annoyed with not having everything on hand and made that investment to have a full inventory. And so that was on a 0% card. 6 months. In 6 months, had about $5,000. Never used a dime of my personal money. I had those accounts completely separate. In our next hangout, we're going to talk about how to do that and how to organize that. And within 6 months, and then I didn't have to pay that anymore. And so then all of that money that was going towards paying the investment became more profit for me. It was 8 months after I started my Mary Kay business. So 2 months after paying off the credit card, I had earned my highest earnings in Mary Kay between commissions and sales. 8th month that for the first time I well exceeded my teaching income. And it was in that 8th month that I earned a free car. Months had no business debt. Do you know how unheard of that is for people to start business and within 6 months have no? and it's complete profit. Do you know how unheard of that is? But we can do that in Mary Kay. Because yes, we make an investment, you guys, but it's not super significant like other people who are starting businesses. I mean, they're taking out business loans for $100 grand, you guys. So putting $2,000 on a credit card ain't no big deal when you're committed to doing the work. It is no big deal. And so it really immediately saw the earning potential. And that's how I handled my initial investment. And I know what a strong source of motivation it was for me on hand. Now, I know not everybody can start like that. I know they can't. I know not everybody can start with a full store, but I do believe everyone can build to that level and should be intentional about building their inventory. Sometimes I'll hear consultants say like, oh, I just want to get rid of all my inventory. I just want to sell it all. And I'm like, wait a minute, why? Because that's your product. That's your assets. Those are your assets that create more income for you. That's what you use to go make an income. No, I know what you mean about wanting to sell it to make a profit, but we have to manage it responsibly by reinvesting and reordering. Then you reorder it to keep your shelf stocked. Aren't ever wait until their shelves were bare to get another delivery to restock the shelves. No, they'd be out of business overnight. Walmart would not exist if they operated their business like that. We are a retail business too. And so to think you can try to like, okay, be in it to win it, but then really have little to nothing on hand, it's just not smart. It's not a savvy business decision. Now I realize you may not be able to start with anything, but you can grow and build to that, which takes reinvesting part of your profits, if not all of your profits, to build an inventory. And you embezzle from your own business and success, not reinvest inventory. You do. Business and you wonder why, like, why didn't this Mary Kay thing work out? Well, you didn't work it like a business. You treated it like some fun little hobby, which if that's all you want it to be, that's fine. But if you want to create income and build a business, there are certain laws of business, and having product on hand for your customers to purchase is just one of those universal things. It's not a Mary Kay thing, you guys. It's a universal let's be successful in business thing. People buy a McDonald's franchise. The franchise comes with all the stuff they need. And the store. The only thing it doesn't come with is the hamburgers and the fries. Somebody's got to manage that inventory and reorder and keep the inventory stocked. Well, can you imagine if they waited for people to come in and order their inventory? I see a lot of people in Mary Kay try to do that. I'm going to wait and see how it goes and see what people want. Okay, let me know how that goes. I'm always a little nervous for those people because the eye buys what the eye sees into McDonald's, and then they're waiting for your order to figure out how they're going to stock their store. It's ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous, right? Well, the same concepts apply to our Mary Kay retail sales business. So it is important to have inventory on hand, and it's an appropriate debt because you get a return on the investment. We'll dig into this more, these concepts more in the next touch on it, and at least get the thoughts out there to you. More nitty-gritty stuff in the next hangout because we got to move on. Because number 8 is really short and sweet and simple, is that there's 2 ways to change your financial situation. And I love this about money management. It does seem so complex sometimes and complicated, and there are parts of it that can be, but really it's pretty darn simple. You want to change your financial situation, you have to spend less or both. Period, end of story. You want to get out of debt, spend less, or both. Like, it's literally that simple. And so we're going to be exploring ideas on how to do that, how to spend less, how to make more, or both, to create a new financial situation in your life. Okay, number 9, I want to talk about tithing. Tithing is a very biblical concept where you give 10% of what you have and what you earn to your church, or in most give to your local church. So let's talk about tithing. This may be a very, very familiar concept for you that you're already doing, and if so, I just want to encourage you in it, in that choice, in that decision. And I realize this could be a brand new concept for some of you that just hear about it. I think there's some resistance. I think there's resistance in all our hearts to, like, ooh, give what I earn just to give to someone else. Hesitation and resistance. And so I do want to explore this topic a little bit. Ron Blue does truly, Ron Blue and Your Money and Thou Shall Prosper by Daniel Lapin cover this topic very well. Mark Batterson is another author. He's a pastor in DC who's written several books, who is a passionate giver. I mean, it's him and his wife's goal that they would flip-flop it, that they would live on 10% of their income and give 90%. I mean, it literally gives me the chills to even say it. And when I first read that, I think I read it in The Circle Maker, that was his goal. And every year they give a little bit of a percentage more to eventually grow to the point where they're living on 10, giving 90. It stopped me dead in my tracks when I read that. I mean, my jaw dropped. To hear what a passionate giver he was and wanted to be. I mean, I was convicted. I'm like, I have literally never had that thought. Never had the thought to live on 10% of my income and give 90. Now you got to be making a decent amount of money and a pretty big income to be able to do that. And live very frugally, of course, but just a passionate giver. And he talks about it in The Circle Maker. And I just read a book by him called The Grave Robber. And again, he talks about giving and really what a blessing it is, and how you can truly, truly see God work in your life and in the lives of others when you are a giver. And so they've done some studies on tithing that are pretty shocking, but they've done studies on married couples, like who counsel married couples, and they have never seen, based on their studies, they've never seen a couple get a divorce who were in agreement tithing and who had been giving and tithing for several years. To read that again, like, is it really saying what it is saying? That they had never seen a couple get a divorce who tithed, meaning that the husband and the wife were on the same page, they were in agreement about what they wanted to give, and they had been consistently giving over several years. They basically said those people don't. For a minute, that's like a massive statement. It says a lot about having a heart that desires to give. Because guess what? When you tithe and you give, it like pulls a little more selfishness out of your soul. Because it's painful sometimes, you guys. It is. It hurts a little bit to give, but it pulls just a little bit more of a self-centered selfishness out of your soul. And when you are less selfish, you're a better mom, you're a better sister, better leader, because it's not about you, people. And when you are a less selfish wife or husband specifically, you have more of an attitude of, what can I give to my husband? How can I serve him? Versus, what can I get from him? How can he serve me? People are in a married relationship asking the question, how can I serve her? How can I serve him? those people typically aren't going down the path of divorce. They're going to work it out and they're going to see it through long haul. And so it's not just about, it's not saying that tithing is this like magic wand for your marriage. Like if you tithe, that you're magically never going to have any problems. That's not what it's saying. It's just saying that the person you become when you tithe is more easy to get along with. Like your husband's going to like you more because you're a less selfish person, because it's about what transforms how you're transformed in your heart and who you become. You become a better and best version of you. Selfish and self-centered. It doesn't work when two people are very selfish and self-centered. Another study was done of employers worked at companies for other people who tithe are less likely to get fired. Isn't that crazy? Less likely to get fired. And again, it's not this magic wand, like if you tithe, you're never going to lose your job. I just think it's this act of worship forms you and forms you into a better version of yourself. And therefore, you're the type of employee that they want to keep around because they like you, because you're not a selfish, self-centered person. God knows our human nature so much and so well that he knows we are at our best when we are givers. Very best. So a lot of people view tithing as this God or this demanding thing or painful thing that they don't want to do, and so they resist it. And I'm like, no, it's a gift. It's a gift God has given us to lead us, because he knows how it transforms us into a better version of ourselves. It helps us to remind us of who owns it all anyways. Remember, it's all God's donuts anyways. And so tithing is a reminder of that. It's also praise and worship. And so you cannot give what you do not have. You guys saw that frivolous consumer spending, credit card debt, consumer debt. It just takes away from what you could potentially give. From what you potentially give, you hold on to a little more selfish version of you, selfless version of me. And that takes a high level of responsibility on a healthy financial life. Never been more encouraged or more challenged to be a giver since I became an NSD. And not because of choices I made, but because of the example that has been set around me and modeled for me. 4.5 years ago, I became a national sales director and entered into the world and the sisterhood of the national sales director position in Mary Kay. There are about 200-ish NSDs in the US. And when you become an NSD, you are literally welcomed and embraced with open arms by 199 other, the sharpest, most high quality women of integrity that I have ever met. And you're welcomed into this group and you get to know them and you literally do life together and you become friends with them and they're your sisters. And there's this beautiful connection and sisterhood that I literally could spend all day trying to describe to you what it's like, but you just have to experience it. No other thing. It's really the most like, it is being an NSD because of the sisterhood that the NSDs share. You get to know these people. You get to know them really well. You go on a all expenses paid luxury trip every year. We work together at career conferences and at seminars. We show up to each other's fall advances, and we stay with each other's families and get to know their kids. And you just do life with these people and you get to know them. And as I've gotten to know them over the past 4.5 years, I've been so challenged and encouraged by the givers that they are. Stewards, the stewards that they are, that they truly seek to honor and glorify God with the time, wealth, resources, money they've been given. It is their sole goal and focus. And it's been convicting. It's been convicting to see and stewardship modeled on such a level of excellence that I have never seen before, not even in my church community. And I go to a great church with great people, but I've seen it modeled so significantly. And so I wanted to share that with you because I want you to be proud of the company you're a part of. And I want you to be proud of the leaders who are at the front, leading by example, leading out in front. I want you to know what type of people they are. These have a lot of influence in the future of Mary Kay. Confident and be inspired by the types of women out in front leading. And that's just one little example of the givers that they are and that they want to be with the wealth that God has blessed them with. It's a practical tip on giving. I wished I had learned this sooner. And my parents did a really good job of raising me. Talked about in our home, and my parents have always tithed. I always watched them lay the envelope in the basket when it went by a church. I've always watched them do that. But it really wasn't until I was married and an adult that I started giving. I'm like, why didn't I do that when I was, in high school and had a job and in college? I really don't know why I didn't. I wish I would have been maybe more intentionally taught sooner how to do that. And so one just little practical thing we're doing with our kids is we got mason jars. Aria's are red, Ian's are blue, Eli's are green, and they're just on our windowsill in our kitchen. One jar for tithing and giving to God, and they have another jar for saving. And then they each have little piggy banks just in their toy room just for spending, however, they want to. And so we've, for Easter, for example, they got little quarters in their Easter eggs from grandma. And so they counted up their quarters, and we had the conversation about 10% and giving 10%. And this Sunday, Ian started crying because he's like, I don't want to give my new money. I don't want to give my new money. I'll give my old money. So I think there was a little bit of confusion there about that, but it created this opportunity for conversation that mommy and daddy, every week we get our new money. We get new money every week. And every week we percent and we save, and then the rest is to spend, to live our lives. And so it's just a practical thing we've done that has created a lot of conversation in our home about how to practically teach your kids to manage their money well. And I don't think you can start too early. Little Eli put a dime in his little mason jar for his tithe. And I don't think you can start too early in starting to teach that concept. Guys, oh my gosh. So we have 7 minutes left, and I have more to share in 7 minutes. And so we're going to tack on a couple things. One of them I really want to share, so tune in next week. It's just my story that started this journey, because I want you to hear about where I was, and what I've done to grow in this journey, and of course continuing to grow in this journey. And so I'm going to tack that on to the beginning of next week's hangout. Also, I'm going to tack on my goal and vision. We're gonna cover that next week too. So our book choices, and then I'm going to close. That's what we're going to do. I want to make sure you know which book you're going to read, and buy it, or the more frugal choice would be to go to the library own the book so you can go back to it. So whatever works for you. But on page 16, there are book choices. And these are just books I've read over the years that have significantly impacted my financial choices. And one is Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. This would be, it's really for anyone. It's for anyone because he has, sometimes I've seen it 10 steps. I don't really know. There's like 7 or 10. I've seen it. But he has steps that you take to just be financial situation. And some of you are going to be on step 1. Some of you are going to be on step, 5. So you're all at different steps on the journey. But he is the only person out there that I know of that has such a good consultants come into Mary Kay, and like they kind of need to know what to do, and we give them the 12-step program. I kind of learned that from Dave Ramsey because like people just need like steps. They need little steps they can take so they can feel like they're winning. Dave Ramsey is the best person day that actually gives you steps, and it's a strong focus in the beginning about getting out of debt. So if that is truly like your next step that you know you need to take to get out of debt, Dave Ramsey's book is a good place to start, and I would recommend that one. Susie Orman's 9 Steps to Financial Freedom. That's kind of if you're that's a good next one if you're not in debt. I would say, like if you're in debt, start with Dave Ramsey. That like Susie Orman's would be a really good one to read, although she does cover the topic of debt, but it's kind of like a next level, and she really digs into your emotional connection with money. Secrets of Six-Figure Women, really good, and who want to become more business minded, to overcome what I needed to overcome, which was the belief or fear that making a lot of money was like somehow bad. You know, that's why I chose teaching, because I thought it was noble to not make a lot of money. Okay, so it kind of covers that idea a little bit and a lot of other things. It's a really great book. Master Your Money by Ron Blue. Ron Blue actually mentored Dave Ramsey, and he provides a lot of content on like biblical perspectives of money. So if you're looking for that, he covers a lot of different areas, but from a very biblical perspective. Shall Prosper, he covers a lot of topics. He's the one that I think like he could have broken this down into like multiple books on multiple topics, but it's basically ideas of being a successful business owner, thinking, behavior that supports that, intellectually stimulating. The Richest Man in Babylon, I picked that up one time because it's on this like list of top 10 financial books to read. It's just a story about, it didn't necessarily blow my mind, but good story. You're going to pick up some good money concepts. Millionaire Next Door, awesome book for, it studies millionaires in America, and it's incredibly intriguing, and it kind of debunks this a consumer lifestyle, and it says that the true millionaires in America don't value consumer frivolous spending. They value investing and building their businesses and value personal development. That's like a big theme in that book. So that's a good one too. So pick a book, you guys, get it today. At the end for finishing your book, if you finish it by the end of this program. Okay, so I want to close with a couple things. First, a poem by Mary Kay Ash that she would read at Director Education, New Director Education. So let me read it to you. I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening when I counted my scanty store. For life is a just employer. Ask. But once you've set the wages, then you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, made that any wage I had asked of life, life would have surely paid. Love that poem. There's a lot of things you can pull out of there. It was just a small amount of money invested equal to $1 million. I think 167 a month. We talked about that. And so there are going to be some people in this life who do that because they are planning from life. Like they're expecting to have abundance. They're expecting to have a healthy financial situation. Therefore, they're planning for it, and they're working for it, and they're saving it, and they will. But that's available to everyone. Because it says, only I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed that any wage I had asked of life, life would have surely paid. And so it's available to anyone, especially in this country. There are other parts of the world that maybe you couldn't say that, but in America, we can say that wealth and a healthy financial situation is available to anyone. If you expect that out of life, and work for that out of life. That poem, and Mary Kay Ash did as well. And so now to close up in the next minute or two, if you can, I want you to close your eyes. Deep breath and kind of quiet your heart and soul right now. Thoughtful place if you can. Even if you're around other people, everybody just kind of quiet down and close your eyes. To just imagine a picture of your ideal financial life. Spend a couple of seconds imagining it. Mental picture of what that looks like. Your ideal financial life or your ideal financial situation. You have a picture in your mind, because I'm going to ask you a few questions. I want you to keep your eyes closed while I ask you these questions. What would that feel like? Live your ideal financial life. How would it change your life? Would it affect your emotions about money? Conversations would you stop having with your husband? And what conversations would you start having with him? Ideal financial life. Like to not owe anyone anything. Make payments. Build a savings account for the future. What would it feel like to eliminate stress from your life? And what could you say yes to now that you currently have to say no to? Open your eyes. And I hope you had a clear picture and a clear emotion and a clear emotional connection to that ideal financial life. Create that, because we have to create it in our minds before we then go create it in our reality. And I just want to ask for your very, very best over these next few weeks, and that you would stick it out and give your all to this course. Hopes that this would put you on your journey. I can see this as a turning point and a catalyst to more financial freedom in life. Okay, so keep that image in front of you. You guys work on your voucher this week. You will only get out of this program what you put into it. So if you're not watching the videos and doing the vouchers and filling out the questions, you're missing out on some stuff. Give your all to this. Give your very best. Take every step. Watch every video. And truly just trust and believe all in our financial lives. So I will see you next week, same time, same place.